Imagine waking up a millionaire and going to bed completely bankrupt. Not over months, not over weeks, but in less than 24 hours. On October 24th, 1929, a day we now call Black Thursday, this wasn't some bad dream. For millions of Americans, it was a sudden, brutal reality. Fortunes that took decades to build vanished before lunchtime. Shoeshine boys who were giving out stock tips just the day before were broke by noon. Housewives who had pulled money from their grocery budgets to get rich quick watched their life savings evaporate in mere minutes. This wasn't just a market correction. It was the day the mask was ripped off. America discovered that a huge chunk of its perceived wealth was nothing more than borrowed money, hot air, and a stack of paper promises. The scariest part? The very same toxic ingredients that caused this disaster, easy credit, widespread delusion, and blind, unchecked greed are bubbling up all over again right now. To understand how we got here, we have to look back at the Roaring '20s. It was an era of unprecedented optimism. The stock market seemed like it would rise forever. Everyone, from taxi drivers to widows, was getting in on the action, borrowing money on margin, often with just 10% down. They were all convinced that this time is different. Sound familiar? Then Thursday morning came. The opening bell rang at 10 a.m., just like any other day. But this was not any other day. By 10:30, a tsunami of selling began. The ticker tape, the system that showed stock prices, fell 30 minutes behind, then an hour. Think about that for a second. In today's world of instant information, imagine not knowing the real price of your assets for an entire hour while the market is in freefall. When people can't see the real price, raw fear takes over. And fear triggers a chain reaction. Fear leads to panic selling. Panic selling triggers margin calls, where brokers demand more money from investors who borrowed to buy stocks. When investors can't pay, the brokers are forced to sell their stocks at any price, pushing the market down even further. It became a mechanical slaughter, a downward spiral feeding on itself. Blue-chip giants, the supposedly safest stocks like General Electric and U.S. Steel, plunged by tens of dollars per hour. The trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange descended into pure chaos. People were screaming, shoving, papers were flying everywhere. It was the financial apocalypse. But while ordinary people were being wiped out in the pandemonium, something else was happening. Just a few blocks away in the lavish, mahogany-paneled offices of J.P. Morgan at 23 Wall Street, the real kings of finance were gathered. Men like Thomas Lamont, the head of Morgan Bank, and Albert Wiggin, the head of Chase National Bank, sat calmly, sipping coffee. To the press and the public, they presented themselves as heroes. They released statements saying, "We're stepping in to stabilize the market." They pooled their money to buy stocks, creating the illusion of a rescue. In reality, they were orchestrating one of the greatest transfers of wealth in human history. They didn't just buy randomly to prop things up. They bought strategically, creating small, fake rallies. These bounces gave desperate investors a glimmer of hope, sucking them back into the market one last time. And then, once the little guys were back in, the banking cartel dumped their newly acquired shares into that bounce, pocketing millions while everyone else bled out. Because here's the dirty little secret the financial elite have always known and still know today: crashes don't destroy wealth. They simply move it. They transfer it from the weak, unprepared hands of the public to the strong, patient hands of the insiders. Wealth moves from Main Street to the vaults of the financial elite. By the time the closing bell rang, the Dow Jones Industrial Average had crashed a staggering 11% in a single day. But the real damage wasn't just in that number. It was in the millions of margin accounts that were wiped out, reduced to zero and beyond. People didn't just lose their savings. Many now owed their brokers more money than they had ever owned in their entire lives. The despair was immediate and devastating. The first wave of suicides began before sunset. The next morning, bank runs started as terrified citizens rushed to pull their cash out, causing even more financial institutions to collapse. And while the country descended into chaos, savvy, well-connected men like Joseph Kennedy, the father of a future president, quietly did the opposite of the crowd. He had already sold his stocks before the crash. Now he was stacking cash, knowing that in the coming fire sale, he'd be able to buy up huge chunks of American businesses and real estate for pennies on the dollar. The history books call it the beginning of the Great Depression. The insiders called it the greatest shopping spree of the century. Now let's fast forward to today. What should terrify you is that we are living through the exact same movie. The actors are different. The special effects are more advanced. We have crypto and meme stocks instead of just railroads and steel, but the script and the ending are exactly the same. We have years of easy money from central banks, record levels of margin debt, a speculative mania in everything from joke cryptocurrencies to unprofitable tech companies, a cult-like belief to buy the dip no matter what, and a population leveraged to the eyeballs, convinced that prices only go up. Until they don't, when the next Black Thursday hits, and history tells us it will, the same massive wealth transfer will happen again, but this time it will happen at the speed of light, powered by algorithms and digital transactions. Wealth will be vacuumed from the accounts of the many and deposited into the vaults of the very few. So the only question you need to ask yourself is this: when that transfer happens, which side of it will you be on? Will you be the one left holding the bag when the music finally stops, or will you be prepared? If you don't want to be a victim of the next great financial reset, you need to start protecting yourself now. Drop a follow, turn on your notifications, and comment 1929 down below right now if you want the exact playbook the elite use not just to survive, but to profit from every single market crash. I'm breaking it all down in my next video. Don't get left behind again. See you there?